Hey there, everybody. It's Denise Salcedo. Welcome back to the channel. With me right now is Chad George. Chad, it is so nice to have you out here once again. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. You know, we're heading into UNF 14. It's a big card. I'm looking forward to it, especially coming off of UNF 13, which I thought was a phenomenal show. I'm very excited for the show. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. You know, it's the culmination of the end of our year, and we've had a fantastic lineup of shows. 13 was amazing. 14 is going to be something special as well. So, you know, it's great. Every time we get a chance to do our content days and come out here, see the athletes, talk about fun stuff, it's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, speaking of fun stuff, I wanted to pick your brain and get your thoughts on the Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury fight that we saw. What'd you think of it?
You know, it was, I think it was amazing for combat sports. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the crossover with MMA guys getting into boxing, you know, something that the Paul brothers have really brought to the forefront, and everybody said, oh, it was a gimmick. You know, and Mayweather, when he fought McGregor, you know, and everyone's like, oh my God, you know, these big names. But we're starting to see this crossover now where MMA guys really do show that we can strike with boxers, and it's really amazing to see what Ngannou just did. You know, he went 10 rounds with the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world that many said was going to destroy Ngannou. Even when you watch the open workouts, you're like, wow, it's two different levels. And Francis went out there, dropped him in the third round, and then arguably won that fight, but through whichever channels you want to talk about it, was taken the victory away by a split decision. But even the simple fact that he went to a split decision with the undisputed king of boxing in his professional debut says monuments about what MMA guys can do in boxing. And now we're seeing these guys that are winning, you know, we can call them the celebrity fights or the influencer fights, but we're seeing now that like these guys can hang with them. They can actually do damage in that world. And I think it's a huge win for MMA and combat sports because, you know, with the UFC and MMA, everybody fights the best. There is no question about, okay, number 2 is going to fight number 9 or whatever. If you're number 1 and you're number 2, you're going to fight each other in MMA. And boxing doesn't do that. It's because there's too many channels. There's too many avenues. And that's why when we finally got to see one of the greats in his prime fight one of the greats in their prime, we see magic. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to see much more of it. And it's going to be very interesting to see what Ngannou does next.
Man, so, you know, hearing you break it all down, definitely a moment that had a lot of people talking. Now, you kind of mentioned a little bit about what do you think this means now? How does this change the landscape for MMA fighters and also open up, I guess you can say, a whole new world of possibilities where you don't have to just stick to the one thing?
Well, I think it opens up a lot more than just to the MMA guys. I think this shows the boxing world why boxing has had problems, right? Because the champions are not fighting champions. The champions are trying to maintain this record that, let's be honest, was kind of set by Mayweather. Everybody wants to be undefeated for their career and become the greatest of all time. Well, MMA, you can lose and still be considered the greatest of all time because you're fighting the best. And I think this really does show that opportunity for boxers to go, man, like we need to change this, because this is why people are saying boxing's dead, because a champion is going to fight a guy who nobody knows. A champion is going to fight a guy who might be a champion 2 weight classes below. And that's not the biggest fights in the world. You watch any title fight in the UFC, you're like, man, those are the 2 best guys in the world. And that's why they will sell those pay-per-views out, because it really is the best fighting the best. But now with this crossover possibility, it's like, man, these guys can have an opportunity to cross-platform, but not cross shows like, you know, Bellator and UFC, which I personally think would be great if these other shows allowed their champions to fight the other champions. I mean, that goes to the problem with boxing. But this does give a really good chance for guys, okay, maybe my MMA career's winding down. I can get a new life and maybe just do some boxing, get some eyes on me, and still be entertaining and be a part of the combative world. And I think it's really amazing for both sides.
It definitely is. And like, even for example, Logan Paul has crossed over onto the WWE side of things. I mean, he's wrestling in a match today in Saudi Arabia. So like, even seeing things like that, you're just like, oh my God, like, how is this even happening?
Yeah, I mean, look at this. He just went and fought Dylan Dennis, right? And like, that really wasn't a big fight, but it was in terms of, this is an MMA guy. Actually, I'm not even saying MMA, he's a jiu-jitsu guy who got his feet wet in MMA, and now all of a sudden he's going to get millions of dollars to fight in boxing. You know, in MMA, we are barely making any money. These athletes are getting paid the scraps. And, you know, there's a couple of guys that are making real good money, but now we're seeing that those crossover platforms, these guys can make real money. And you do have to thank the Paul brothers for showing a unique light on this, you know, and are they the best fighters in the world? No. But what they are doing is they're using their audience and their ability to reach people and cultivate this energy around them and bring an awareness to these guys to finally getting them what they're worth. And I truly think that that's what combative sports needs. They need these guys. We need these guys to be able to keep creating this awareness so guys can get paid because we are putting our lives on the line. These athletes are doing so much for people's entertainment, and it is detrimental to their health, and there's no real financial stability behind it. You know, like look at the other sports, baseball, basketball, football. They get millions of dollars just to sign on. These fighters are basically subcontractors, but they can't go out elsewhere and make more living doing this. So until that changes, and this I think is the pathway to it, you know, we need to be able to have these crossovers where these guys can make real money.
100% well said right there. And, you know, when it comes to money and when it comes to MMA, that's obviously a huge topic, especially because you do see, like you mentioned, all of these other sports making millions of dollars, and it's a drastic difference. So, and even then, like, even when the guys, like, yeah, you can go and work a side job, right? But then you got your training that you have to do. It's not like you just pop in for the fight on a random Saturday and then don't do anything during the week. Of course not. It's not like that.
Yeah, and you know, when you're on the lower levels, you can still do those jobs and get by enough. But when you start fighting the best guys in the world, you need to focus on your rest, your recovery, all the proper trainings, all the things that need to be done to be able to fight the best guys in the world. And when that happens, you're not able to have an extra 6 to 8 hours in your day to be able to go do a full-time job. And then what happens, let's say you're doing all the right things and then you get injured. So now you've taken time away from your regular job. Now you get injured and you can't even fight. So all that was for literally nothing. You know, there is no backup plan. And so that's what's really unfortunate. You know, people still say, well, the sport's still young. It is young, but until we start acknowledging these things, those aren't going to change. And I think that with the awareness of what's happening now, I think it's going to start leading in the right direction. And the kids that are getting into the sport now, hopefully, will enjoy the fruits of these transformations. You know, like old guys like me, we're just going to look at it and we're always going to be like, well, in my time, you know. And we set the groundwork for it. And I really hope that in the coming years, the kids that are coming into it now are the ones that are going to really build financial stability from it.
I love that, man. Try to make the next day, try to make tomorrow the better day. Chad, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It was great to pick your brain on everything else, and I appreciate it. Before we go, just a friendly reminder to everybody, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, if you guys want tickets for UNF, you can click in the description box below, and there is a link right in there for you guys to get tickets. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.